Do we have any individuals from Somalia in the group? Please raise your hand. That's for Minnesota, you know. That's called the Great Big Minnesota Scam with one of the dumbest governors ever in history.
And Walz.
I love this Ilhan Omar, whatever the hell her name is, with the little turban. I love her. She comes in, does nothing but bitch. She's always complaining. She comes from a country where, I mean, it's considered about the worst country in the world, right? They have no military, they have no nothing, they have no parliament. They don't know what the hell the word parliament means. They have nothing, they have no police. They police themselves, they kill each other all the time. I love it. She comes to our country, and she's always complaining about the Constitution allows me to do this. We ought to get her the hell out. She married her brother in order to get in, right?
So here you see Donald Trump last night in Mount Pocono, Pennsylvania, the first of many rallies that he's going to be holding as he warms up for the midterms. This specific point on Ilhan Omar is well-timed, as she is directly in the crosshairs of the IRS, the FBI, and the Department of Justice for what may be one of the largest welfare and social services fraud investigations ever. $1+ billion right now, with over 80 Somalian nationals and illegal nationals, or illegals rather, in the country being implicated in COVID and welfare scams in Minnesota. This all under Governor Tim Walz's guise, direction, and inspectors. So Ilhan Omar and Tim Walz are having a particularly bad week, and their bad week didn't end there with Donald Trump. In fact, last evening also, Tom Homan was on Newsmax and Rob Schmidt, and he is going to give us some information that will be key to the go-forward plan with Minnesota and Representative Omar. Let's have a listen.
Our Tom Homan joins us tonight to talk about Minnesota as well as a number of other issues. And sir, it's good to have you back on the show. Trump mentioning the Daily Mail reporting from 2020 that Ilhan Omar married her brother to get into the country. This was last week. Take a listen.
Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud.
It is.
Calls that a fraud. It's a story that has never been successfully refuted, even though it's now a 5-year-old story. That's clearly a deportable offense. Is there an investigation into that?
You know, I just got advised by a fraud investigator the other day on that. I asked the question, who reviewed the file, and says, there was immigration fraud involved. The statute of limitation became an issue in the last 4 years when this was first brought up. Who was president? Who ran DOJ? So pulling the records now, pulling the files, and we're looking at, but this fraud investigator, who I know personally, one of the best fraud investigators in HSI, Homeland Security Investigations, said there's no doubt he reviewed the file. So I'm running that down this week, matter of fact, and we'll see.
It's tremendous that, I mean, and according to the Secretary, Kristi Noem of DHS, she said nearly 50% of the visas are fraudulent in this community. I mean, that would mean that half the Somali refugees are here in some way illegally. What's going to happen? Is something actually going to happen? Are there going to be people stripped of their visas, deported? Are we going to see that?
Absolutely. I mean, those days are over. Thank God President Trump's in the White House. We're going to look at all of them. I mean, we're going to look at those here illegally, of course. We're going to look at those here under a visa or some sort of, immigration process that are criminals. We're going to look at the national security threats. But those who came through a process that weren't properly vetted, who didn't provide documentation, who slipped through the Biden's weak processes on, giving visas and temporary, whether student visas or visitors visas or whatever. We're going the whole gamut.
So I think we can all agree that Tom Homan was really one of the best hires for Donald Trump and is really perfect for this job. But a few key pieces that we're getting out of this is that they're going to be going back and revisiting The initial investigation that was tabled and almost went through with the statute of limitations from the Biden folks, specifically to Ilhan Omar marrying her brother, and if that's even legal. This is a standing member of Congress that's now under investigation and potentially could be deported. Now, the bigger question is, why does Ilhan Omar have such an issue with Donald Trump and his administration, specifically in this regard to the DOGE efforts that Elon Musk and Donald Trump were making? Well, as you can see here, Elon Musk, specifically with the DOGE efforts, was initially going after U.S. aid. Well, U.S. aid, as it relates to Somalia, was going over the Biden administration from $65,000 in aid through U.S. aid up to $30 million in U.S. aid. This is a huge issue, and this may explain why Ilhan Omar has such an issue with Donald Trump.
It is really, really a sad day in America. We are witnessing a constitutional crisis. We talked about Trump wanting to be a dictator on day one, and here we are. This is what the beginning of dictatorship looks like. When you gut the Constitution and you install yourself as the sole power, that is how dictators are made. It is really
interesting comments again coming from Omar in light of the fact that she's now representing people that are potentially in the country illegally, including herself. So talking about Elon Musk and his DOGE efforts, he was recently in an interview where he had some very key comments, and I want you to read into this a bit, on where he's going with not only Mandami, the newly elected mayor for New York City, but also for Ilhan Omar. Have a listen.
Well, let's look at, Ilhan Omar, who was voted into power, voted into Congress by, a large group of people from Somalia who are in Minnesota, which is really far from Somalia. Or Mamdani, who was voted to be mayor, but by a majority of people who are not born in America. That's my understanding, at least. And then California is a big time situation. So I don't know. We just don't want to turn into a communist hellhole, basically. Well, let's look at
exactly. And what Elon's really getting at is when you're representing people that are potentially illegal, and you're in the middle of one of the biggest social services frauds, and then you have Larry Ellison, who's in the assistant attorney general for Minnesota, who was talking about greasing the wheels with some of this fraud. It leads to the question of, is there pay for play going on in Minnesota, specifically with Ilhan Omar? She was talking in the earlier clip about Donald Trump being a dictator and being elected by the people. Well, she's now being elected by people that are potentially in some of the largest fraud cases where she's siphoning off some funds that we've ever known, that we've ever seen. The numbers right now, again, are $1 billion, and it's going up potentially. There's whispers that this could go north of $8 billion in fraud under the AG Larry Ellison, under Tim Walz, the Minnesota governor, and under Ilhan Omar, the representative in Washington, D.C. for Minnesota in the 5th District. But lastly, I want to leave you with this, and this is a key video that is a little bit old. It's a couple years old from Ilhan Omar, but I want you to specifically listen, or you're going to have to read the captions here, but follow this quickly. She moves into a bigger question that I think has to be asked, specific to Omar. And it's not, did she marry her brother, even though that's a major question. The bigger question she'll leave us with at the end. Follow the captions.
jawaabteedu waxay ahayd dowladda Mareykanka waxay ka qabanaysaa wixii annaga aan dhahno dowladda Mareykanka qabo
waa kalsoonidaas inaan isku qabno annaga Soomaali haddii aan nahay waddankan annaga ku nool waddankan waddankii aan annaga tax ka dhiibno waaye waa waddankii gabar idinka dhalatayne ee Congress ka fadhiso intii aniga aan Congress joogo waddanka Soomaaliya biyaheeda dad kaleeta iyo badeeda dad kale ma qaadanayaan waddanka Mareykankana kuma taageerayo dad kaleeta in annaga ayna dhacaan marka taas ka seexda
So I don't know if you caught that. Again, I'm going to go to the end here, and I want you to see this because I need to get my cursor off a little bit. There we go. You can see clearly as she's speaking in Somalian to a Somali audience in Minnesota that she's saying, sleep in comfort, knowing I am here to protect the interests of Somalia from inside the U.S. system. So who is this Representative Ilhan Omar? Did our funds that she was siphoning off not only go to a pay-for-play scheme so that she can continue representing Somalian interests from inside the system? These are big questions, and these are questions that Tom Homan and Donald Trump are all over. As you can see in the previous clip or in the first clip, Tom Homan is going to be investigating Omar specifically as to the papers that she initially came to this country on. Was she legal? Did she marry her brother? Pam Bondi and Kash Patel are, along with Scott Bassett at the IRS and the Treasury Department, are looking at both Tim Walz and Omar as it relates to the largest health or Medicaid, welfare, and COVID fund scam potentially we've ever seen. What do you think about her representing Somalian interests from inside the U.S. system? And this leads to another question that I think we all need to address. Where do the loyalties stand when you have dual citizenship and representatives in our Congress? This is a big deal. There's a number of individuals, including Representative Omar, that are dual citizens. So do you think Donald Trump and Tom Homan are going to be successful in deporting Ilhan Omar, an active member of Congress, if it does in fact come out that she did marry her brother? I think that's a big question. We're all going to have to wait and see. So if you have yet, please do subscribe to America First Alerts. We'd love to have you along for the ride. Be sure to like this video and leave a comment down below.